If your biceps are stubborn like mine, definitely consider these special training tips and you might get better gains. The first is to start any workout with direct bicep isolation work. See, most lifters finish off with curls when they're most fatigued, mentally drained, got a little left inside, etc. Then wonder why they're still torso dominant. Well, isn't it obvious? There was too much emphasis on compound movements, which were only optimal for the primary movers. Consequently, curls are almost always half-assed. Less focus on progression, form, intensity, usually doing less exercises. You know how it is. So, the easiest solution is embracing the old school principle of muscle priority, which I learned from Leroy Colbert. This means starting with the lagging area, biceps, and adjusting your program for specialization, which comes in two different forms. One, pairing antagonist muscles, or two, incorporating pre-exhaust. Allow me to explain both. Regarding antagonism, this refers to deviating from the traditional chest and tries, back and bis, push days and pull days, where compounds and isolations are attacking the same overlapping muscles. Instead, with muscle priority, you'd reverse and oppose the isolation work. Here being biceps and chest, pull isolations with push compounds, and for upper body workouts, doing biceps, chest and back, either alternating push and pull or sequentially, then triceps. This simple correction provides that arm day effect, making it impossible to be lazy on curls. You're maximally fresh, can always give it your all for every set, hitting extreme failure, and the best part is, fatigue buildup from smaller motions like curls isn't high. So your upcoming compounds won't be nearly as affected, even more so given the lack of muscular interference. Your biceps being toasted has no bearing on your ability to press heavy weights, whereas the other way around is generally harder from an effort standpoint. And that's precisely why many don't get the best calf growth when hitting them at the end of a leg day despite zero stimulation from earlier squats and deads. Of course, this is the same for curls. Heck, I can even tell you to hit biceps before legs if your schedule permits it. Point is, the first line of defense is curling in the strongest state possible, where the biceps are least affected by confounding exercises. Now, if you're not going to start with curls because pressing is more important, well, with an antagonist setup, your biceps are still stronger since there's no local muscular fatigue from back training, resulting in elevated force production in spite of being somewhat tired. That said, if you don't want to change your split and generally enjoy getting more out of less weight, the other option is pre-exhaust, where exercise selection is identical, but the order isn't. The subtlety is in training biceps and back, not back and biceps. So hit curls first, then your back workout. Of course, your horizontal and vertical pulls will be weaker, but not by a significant amount. Your pull-ups may go from 100 pounds to 70 pounds, or rows from 225 to 185. Cable work from 4.5 plates to 3.5 to 4.5 plates. Not bad. Plus, you'll adapt over time so the ratio gets tighter, eventually reclaiming those former numbers. So, assuming you're training hard and getting stronger, your back should keep growing. And don't forget, biceps were only assisting secondarily to begin with, hence your initial imbalance. If anything, we can argue this setup will make your pulling compounds slightly more biased for biceps from a proximity to failure standpoint, since they're becoming a limiting factor. Not saying compounds will become isolations or they can get away with minimalism. That said, chin-ups, especially with a fat grip, will strain your biceps far more. Mind-muscle connection is enhanced, and biceps will have less reps in reserve even though back is what's failing the set. All we're doing is trading a bit of back gains for a bit of bicep gains. And for those who've been thick and wide for a long time, that's appealing. So in the worst case where back does suffer, if pre-exhaustion provides a minor advantage for biceps, and that's literally where I'm getting at here, it's worth considering. And I personally wouldn't mind. Also, having done this for some months, I can tell you from experience everything was fine. Secondly, I want to talk about biasing the two heads of the biceps. But before doing so, I must point out that most of you are better off not worrying about this for now. Why? because you probably don't have well-sized biceps to begin with, and trying to chisel without a base is a misallocation of resources. And that's why you see all these biomechanics gurus with puny biceps, because they never even got strong at the fundamental curls, which ironically are actually optimal because the biceps benefit most from mid-range focused work given their length to tension relationship, aka favoring good old-fashioned free weighted curls. So your first objective is to get strong at the basics. Classic standards being 50 to 60 pound dumbbell curls for sets of 10 and 95 to 115 pound barbell curls for sets of 10. Hard to acquire, yes, and might take years, but if you do get there, 90% of your bicep mass is easily established. It's really not a complicated muscle. After all, the main function is elbow flexion. Now, I know many of you aren't going to listen because simple truths are not sexy in this day and age. Sad, but I'll now explain what you don't need to hear unless you are advanced, which you'll likely prioritize regardless. So, bicep shape is mostly genetic, but with smart training, it is possible to shift the emphasis to the short or long heads, and if you did this for long enough, it would show. Particularly in a competitive bodybuilding environment or of single-digit body fat where you can see the full shape. In 2023, we can no longer state that manipulating arm angles doesn't work. And so, here's how we can simplify things. For the biceps long head being the peak, you can emphasize it when the arms are behind the body, as in the case of incline curls, pelican curls, and face-away cable curls. Or by externally rotating the arms such that you're curling in a T formation, which comes naturally with Olympic dumbbells given the long sleeves. Also using two chest expanders angled to the sides, or grabbing slightly wider on a bar and setting diverging cables coming in and out. You can also combine everything for maximum effect. Then, for the bicep short head being width and thickness, it's the opposite. The arms are in front of the body, like in a preacher curl, concentration curl, or high cable curl, or by internally rotating the arms, thus curling in an upside down V formation, which is best hit from narrower grip curls, preachers done pinwheel style, and setting up cables or springs to come in, converge at the top. Boom! Those are the basic principles, and there's honestly not much to say here, so replay that if you need to. It's all about elbow and shoulder positioning. Again, for long head bias, you want shoulder extension and or external rotation. And for short head bias, shoulder flexion and or internal rotation. It's not the other way around like what was taught for a long time. What I said is the updated consensus, and logically, it's what you feel and see when flexing. In addition, if you want more stability and maintenance of these arm positions, certainly do your exercises seated or in a brace fashion. So preacher curl variations are typically going to be king, with the biasing depending if your shoulder is facing in or out. And seated curls that are also braced, aka having physical contact with the triceps, same for an arm blaster, allow for maximum force production and minimizes elbow traveling. Just to say, Steve Reeves used to do incline curls with a pipe tied around the bench for this exact reason. Now that's genius and way ahead of the curve. You can do the same with a foam pad or by doing curls in the lat pull down station, assuming your gym isn't crowded. Lastly, when talking about curling form, I strongly recommend staying away from cheat curls. I don't care that Arnold did them, so did I, and during those times is when my biceps look the absolute worst. And this is what I've also seen with my audience over many years. The cheaters consistently have poor results, then complain about torso dominance. Listen, swinging weights around is not overloading your biceps. It's pure momentum driven by your hips and shoulders. In truth, the biceps are being stimulated less, and the added heavy weight does not compensate for this. Now for those who say, oh, you can always control the negative. Good luck doing that when you're genuinely overloading. You'll probably just drop the weight in a rhythmic, tilting fashion, just like most gym bros. And the concentric, which is most important, isn't optimal. Now, does this mean you need to be a form Nazi? Obviously not. Please don't misinterpret my message, which should be obvious by looking at any of these clips. You can raise your elbows and you can lean back ever so slightly. Just stop doing underhand hang cleans or relying on jolts of inertia to get the weight moving from point A to B. Like, no one cares how much you can curl, and doing it properly with less weight provides all the hypertrophy benefits without downsides. Reliable technique and progression, less wrist and elbow discomfort, maximum biceps recruitment, optimal resistance profiles, I can go on. That said, you may think your form is good, but there's one aspect that's often screwed up, namely being the negative. I rarely see control, especially when the arm is about to be locked out or approaching failure. That is leaving extra gains on the table, and new research agrees. Now, this doesn't mean going slowly, but there should be resisted tension on the way down, leading to a nasty pump, ugly faces, and bleeding your strength for subsequent reps. Forcing better form overall, since you'll have no choice but to lighten the load. Do not give in to your ego. And if you feel the need to cheat, just drop and perform mild reps, aka rest pause. So rest a good 10 to 15 seconds tops and get a couple more reps in. Repeat 2 to 3 more times and you're done. No need to uppercut weights around. Also, if you have difficulties maintaining proper form as the set progresses, which is entirely normal, then consider sticking to lower reps of 5 to 10. This way, local fatigue and metabolic stress is kept at a minimum. Oftentimes, the burn of high rep curling can be so intense that we prematurely stop our sets or try to rush by speeding up the eccentrics or doing mini jerks to avoid the painful positions, which is especially noticeable when doing alternate curls since the set takes time. You can negate this by ensuring your sets are shorter to complete. So as long as you keep your ego in check, heavy curls will not only be safe, but more efficient for hypertrophy even if your arms look less vascular. Remember, mechanical tension is what drives growth, and more fatigue equals more form breakdown, which is the last thing you need if it's already been off for all this time. Hence, you're lagging biceps. You cannot afford to be sloppy anymore. Take it from me. I've been there, I've done that. Just stop with the cheating. Those who did get far typically have above average bicep genetics. And if you're watching this video, that's probably not you. So with that said, these simple, unique tips should make a big difference in your long-term biceps training. There's obviously way more I can share, so if you want a part 2, let me know. But in the meantime, out of all these tips, which do you feel are most applicable? Let me know, and I'll talk to you all next time.